I wanted to start you off with sort of a logistical question. Operationally, how has your day-to-day changed being the governor dealing with coronavirus right now? Because I would imagine that your day looks a lot different than it might have a year ago.
I think, like all of us, frankly, I am trying to model the, kind of action that I'm asking everyone to take, which is staying safe at home. And so the vast majority of my time is spent here at the residence. On occasion, I'll do my press conferences and I'll go over to the SEOC or to the Romney building to do that. But I'm here, and my days start early, they go late. They are back-to-back Zoom calls or conference calls. They are back-to-back with our epidemiologists to organizations. I was on with the Credit Union League yesterday, 400 leaders across the state. So every day looks a little different, but always kind of the same template, actually. And I was talking to a friend of mine in this moment that we're all doing these conference calls back to back, and he observed, and I thought it was really true, that when you do call to call to call, you don't get that downtime of jumping in the car where you can just take a breath. We have a tendency to schedule everything right in a row. So really from about 5 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, that's what the day looks like.
And there's a protest. You're coming to us from your home office right now, but there's of course a protest going on between your Romney building and Capitol offices. What would you say to the people who are just fed up enough to come out in the rain to protest your stay-at-home order?
Well, the same thing that I say to everyone. I know that this is a hard time. There's no question that there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of frustration. And those are all emotions that I too feel. And yet right now it's more important than ever that we are vigilant, that we are smart. The sacrifice that we have made over the course of the last 8 weeks in terms of staying home and taking kids out of school and, pausing everything, it's paid off. We have saved lives. We've kept our health system from collapsing from the weight of unchecked COVID-19 community spread. It's not come without a cost, that's true to be sure, but we can't abandon all of these practices and make that sacrifice in vain and have a second wave come. And that's why it's really important that as we re-engage our economy with these numbers continuing to decline in terms of COVID-19, that we do so mindfully, that it's incremental, that we are smart about measuring and testing and tracing every step of the way so that we can have confidence, safe to take the next step. And it requires everyone to keep doing their part. The thing about this virus is that it's a novel virus, which means we've never seen anything like it before. We've learned as a country and as a world an incredible amount that COVID-19 first started presenting. Right here, where we are today, it's so dramatically different from where we were 4 weeks ago. That will be the case again in 4 weeks if we all continue to do our part. And that's what I hope. So if you're a frustrated person, I get it. If you're upset, I understand. I had hoped to be in the midst of getting ready for my daughter's graduation from high school. And she's not going to have that milestone celebration that we all kind of envisioned and that I had as a kid. And yet, it's important that she knows we're going to get through this, and important that every young person, every older person in our state knows that too. And we are making progress. We've just got to continue to be vigilant. And so if you're frustrated and you want to, take it out by demonstrating, I just ask that you do it in a responsible way where you're wearing a mask and you're staying 6 feet away from others and you're not endangering others in the public.
Governor, how likely is it that you will extend the stay-at-home order in its current form with bans on all gatherings past May 28th?
Well, I can say that, the fact is our curve has continued to decline. The concern, though, is that I know people are getting restless, and I know that the weather is nice and we've engaged some sectors of our economy. And so people are moving more. And if people let their guard down, we could see COVID-19 start to climb again, and then we'd have to pause for longer. And I don't want that to happen. And that's why I'm asking everyone to continue doing their part. My fervent hope is that come the end of May, we go into another phase where we can start to engage in some of these other activities. We won't be filling stadiums anytime soon, but we can start to resume some more normalcy in our lives. And so long as we all continue to do our part and be smart about it.
And Governor, we're bringing you a lot of questions from viewers today. And if you're watching, please feel free to drop questions in the comments as this live stream is rolling. But one that came in earlier was about some of the business operations that people would like to see reopen. Sarah Cox asks, can you provide dates for operations such as retail, hair salons, nail salons, gyms, etc., to reopen?
Yeah, so what we know is that as we have worked with the Michigan Economic Recovery Council, we've scored various sectors of our economy for risk in COVID-19. Questions like, is it interfacing with the public? Is it densely, is the work necessary to be done in a dense manner? Do you have people shoulder to shoulder or hand to hand, like in a nail salon? Is it something that is done outside or inside? All of these things contribute to the inherent risk of the spread of COVID-19. It doesn't mean that we can't ever do them again. That's not what it means. But it means that we have to, as we phase in, take the least risky things first and continue to see how that impacts our COVID-19 numbers. If we still see that downward trend, we can take the next step. And so as we are doing this, it's all about keeping the risk of a second wave down. We know that when you look at the 1918 flu pandemic that hit our country, areas that dropped their social distancing had a second wave that was, in some cases, more ferocious than the first. I know we are not all 100% united on every step that's had to be taken in this moment. But I think we all are united that we don't want to do this again in August or September or October with a second wave. And that's why it's really important that we phase these things in. Retail will probably be in the next phase. If we continue to see our testing go up and our positive cases continue to decline, that would be something that would make sense in the next phase. But it also has to be done with the appropriate protocols, meaning wearing masks, meaning keeping crowds down from so people can remain 6 feet apart. All of these are actions that our employers and our business owners are going to need to deploy in their workplace.
And you might be able to relate to this one from Irene as a dog owner. She asks, why can't dog groomers open? This is safer than grocery shopping.
So we are looking at how do we reengage certain sectors of our economy, and dog groomers is one that I've heard frequently, actually. And Kevin is getting a little scruffy too, but I think that this is one where maybe there is an opportunity to move forward, especially if it is not a big facility where there are a lot of people working in close quarters. And so that is something that we're taking a look at for a possibility in the next phase.
And one more we're getting a lot of questions about is state campgrounds. What makes those? This person, Mark, asks, why is it safe to pack Walmart but dangerous to camp at a state campground?
Yeah, it's not safe to pack Walmart. And so I appreciate the nature of the question. Walmart sells a lot of essentials that people need, and so they've been open throughout this pandemic. They also are supposed to be observing all of the best practices, and I have heard that the vast majority of our big box stores and grocers are doing that in terms of keeping the number to a certain level per 1,000 square feet of the facility, and that's to keep everyone safe. Our campgrounds it's one of the great things about our state is the beauty of Michigan. In summer, you can't beat it. There's nothing like this state. And I know how recreation is so crucial to our economy, but more importantly, to our mental health and our enjoyment of being Michiganders. And so our state parks have remained open. Camping where people are using the same facility is concerning because we don't want to contribute to the spread by having people pack into a bathroom facility on a campground, for instance. So DNR has determined that we are going to not have those facilities open for a bit longer, but we're all eager to re-engage that part because it is good to be outside, so long as you can maintain that social distancing and not utilize the same close spaces with others.
And we've been talking about the businesses that aren't open, but we're also getting some questions about businesses that are open. Janet asks, why aren't fines being given to people refusing the orders? There are a lot of businesses out there that are doing the right thing by waiting to open, but then there are ones ruining it by opening it anyway. We need more enforcement, she says.
Yeah, so we are pursuing enforcement on people that are flouting the law. The vast majority of business is doing the right thing, and that's really important to note. I know when people see protesters, they think that's all of Michigan. The vast majority of people in our state are doing the right thing, and the same goes for businesses. They want to know that it's going to be safe to reopen for themselves, for their customers, for their employees. We all have to have that confidence. And so those that are operating when they know that they shouldn't be are going to have felt some of the pressure from the state. The barber, for instance, whose license is now in jeopardy. Most businesses in the state of Michigan have a license to operate. And I know that they don't want to put those in jeopardy by, taking action that can contribute to the longer dealing of COVID-19. So ask that everyone continues to do their part and know that we are serious. This is not a suggestion. These are orders that my expectation is that people and businesses alike are following.
And how do you deal with the gaps in enforcement right now? The sheriffs who have said that they're not going to enforce your order. In those areas, what's the backstop? And is the state stepping in some way?
So I think one of the things that we are seeing play out in real time is that there are 50 states that are confronting COVID-19. And I've likened it to building a plane while you fly it, right? This is a novel virus. We're learning so much every single day. We're trying to make the best decisions based on the data and the information that we have. We also can look and see what's happening elsewhere. And in Georgia, my counterpart determined that they wanted to reengage a lot of sectors of their economy, but the public doesn't believe it's safe. And so as businesses have reopened, people aren't showing up to patronize those businesses because they're worried. And I would submit, rightly so. The problem with doing that, with just declaring this situation over and telling business to open, is if the public doesn't believe it, if the employees aren't confident they're going to be safe, it actually puts business in a worse position because they don't have the protections of the state of emergency, and they're supposed to rely. And that's why we've worked with industry, we've worked with business, we've worked to make sure that the public health experts in our state are advising how do we keep the risk of a second wave down? How do we help make sure that people are safe when a particular sector goes back? And that's why it's so important that we continue to get this right. Now, I know that there are sheriffs who said that they're not going to take action. You know what? I've never envisioned that we would have to become police. What I have envisioned, though, is that we have to do, all of us, do our to keep COVID-19 from overwhelming our hospitals and killing our people. We have done, the vast majority of people are doing the right thing. They're going to keep doing the right thing, regardless of what individual office holders say in some regard. And I think it's important that we not on keeping people safe.
And are you okay though with a patchwork of your executive orders, really, where someone who opens up shop in one county might not be punished, but someone who opens up shop ahead of time in another county, might feel the full force of the orders on that?
Well, no, obviously, I think that the good news story here is that the vast majority of people are doing the right thing, and that is what's contributing to our numbers. When you look at a national map where Michigan is compared to the rest of the country, we're doing better. And it's because people have taken this seriously and done the right thing. I know that different parts of the state have had a different experience with COVID-19. I just lost one of my dear friends. He was on a ventilator for a long time and died this week. If you haven't been touched by COVID-19 because a loved one hasn't gotten it yet, you're very lucky. It's a horrible, horrible disease. It does not stop at a county line. It doesn't stop at a state line. It doesn't stop at a party line. This is a disease to which we are all vulnerable, and we don't know how we're going to react to it. In one household, a person can be asymptomatic the whole time they have COVID-19. And for another person in that household, it can be deadly. One of my daughters has asthma, and I know that if COVID-19 is brought into my house, she could get really sick really fast, and it would be scary. I've seen it happen to others. And that's why I still am imploring people to take this seriously, to act as though you might be carrying COVID-19 right now. Wear your mask when you're at the grocery store. Wash your hands frequently. Don't let your guard down, because COVID-19 is still in 79 out of 83 of our counties right now.
We're getting a lot of questions about the state's unemployment system, which obviously has seen more demand now than perhaps ever before. And this question from Hannah is, it's been 7 weeks since we filed for unemployment and we've yet to receive any supplementary income. Are you working on this issue? It's impossible to reach anyone at the UIA and beyond frustrating.
Well, Emily, I don't know if you'll be able to share Hannah's contact information with us after we're on the other side of this conversation, but I would like to have it. I think that our unemployment agency has been completely overwhelmed, as has the unemployment agencies of all the other states in the nation. We've helped over 1 million people at this point in time, moving billions of dollars, and it's made a big difference. But the fact of the matter is, it's cold comfort if you're one of the tens of thousands who still hasn't gotten through. And so I understand the pain and the frustration that you have. We've had a 5,000% increase in claims for unemployment. And so we have built up our unemployment staff by 5 times over, but when you have a 5,000% increase, you can tell we're still struggling to make sure that we've gotten to everyone. We won't stop until we do. I have issued a number of orders that ensure that you don't get penalized for not getting your claim in by a date certain, that have made it easier to file. But I recognize that there are some people still in our state that need that one-on-one assistance to navigate through the system. And that's why we've got a queuing system. That's why if you go to the state website and you sign up and go on the day that the letter of your last name is, it's easier to get through. But I will follow up with you if you'll share your information with Emily.
And I think people are wondering too if there's a broader fix that's needed here to how the state's unemployment system functions. Diane asks, I would like to know when they are going to fix the unemployment issues.
So I do think that in years past, decisions by my predecessor and people before me made it harder for unemployed people to navigate the system. They took it from 26 weeks of eligibility down to 20 weeks, created a lot of different red tape and hurdles for people to navigate. I, on the other hand, have been trying to cut that red tape and to eliminate those hurdles. And that's what I've done in some of these executive orders. All of that being said, though, the fact that the system has been completely swamped because of how many people are suddenly unemployed is a stressor that is not unique to Michigan. It's being felt across the country. I would just observe this, that, we have actually been one of the more successful states in keeping our system online, and the number of people per capita that we've been able to serve. I know that if you look at our numbers compared to Florida, it's really stunning how many more people have gotten help in Michigan than have in Florida. And as I said, I know that that doesn't assuage concerns of someone who's frustrated and worried and hasn't gotten through. But I just point that out because we have done a lot of work. We have more work to do, to be sure, but we're going to get to every single person that's eligible, and they're going to get the benefits that they're eligible for.
And Governor, this question's from Mindy, and I have to say, too, that it reflects a lot of what I've seen in my inbox. Why are us essential retail workers getting paid less than people on unemployment? We are the ones at risk and getting paid the least.
Yeah, so I appreciate Mindy's question, and I appreciate her work. I mean, I think in this moment, it's given us the chance to really acknowledge who has put their own health on the line so that we can eat. Those grocery store clerks who's put their own health on the line so that we're cared for, the nurses and doctors and respiratory therapists who's put their own health on the line so that our kids are getting the meals that they've come to expect at school, our kids who are at risk, and our teachers who are doing the work to make sure that our kids are still getting the education they need. And so we've created some things in terms of hazard pay, some things in terms of opportunity of futures for frontliners so that there's a educational opportunity on the other side of the crisis. But I recognize that there's more that we should be striving to do on behalf of the hardworking men and women who show up every day for us in the midst of this global pandemic.
A question from Tracy. Is there a safe way for youth sports like baseball to start up, and when do you see that happening?
So, I've gotten this question from a lot of parents, and I think, I get it. My kids are teenagers, and they're asking me every single day, when can we go back? When can we resume life? They were hoping to go to a camp, and, I just can't say definitively what the data is going to be in another month, much less 2 months. And so I think it's really important that we continue to do the work. We continue to take this seriously. And the more disciplined we can be doing that, the quicker we can get to a point where we can start those T-ball or, the camps that we're used to doing in the summer. But as Dr. Fauci said, and as all of the epidemiologists say, and as the public health experts across the country and Dr. J here in Michigan tell us, is that until we have a vaccine, it's not going to be safe to have big masses of people coming together. And so I know we all love football, or a lot of us do. I'm one of them. The thought that there's going to be stadiums full of people in the fall is probably unrealistic. The concern about getting our kids back in classroom is one that I am absolutely focused on, and figuring out how we can do it and keep them safe. We've seen other states just say that there's not going to be any in-person instruction until January in school. We've seen other states cancel in-person instruction in colleges for the fall. We haven't taken that step yet here in Michigan because I think it's important that we really continue to measure the data and see where we are in another month before we make proclamations about where we'll be in 6 months.
And we're getting a lot of questions about events, and I'm going to attempt to sum them up with this one. When do you envision going back to a limit on the number of people gathered instead of banning all gatherings between anybody not in the same household?
Yeah, my hope is that at the end of this month, we could maybe permit gatherings of 10 or less. I know that that's not a big gathering, but it certainly, I think, would be able to give us the feeling and the confidence that we can take this next step. It really depends on what the COVID numbers are, though, in another week. As we're making decisions about the 28th, we're going to continue to see our testing increase, and hopefully our positive numbers go down. And if that's the case, then that's a very real possibility. I've had a lot of people ask about weddings and graduations and parties, and gatherings of those sizes probably aren't going to be safe for a while. But I would like to take that next step, maybe it's 10 or under, where we can start to safely re-engage and help us with our social needs and our family needs and our mental health too.
I know you and your partners in the legislature are staring at a big budget hole right now, but this question from Penny is, how will you address the loss of funds to our schools due to the loss of sales tax?
Yeah, so we are anticipating about a $3 billion hit to our budget, and we will have the revenue estimating conference tomorrow, actually, and that's when economists come together and project what our ability is in terms of all of the different revenue sources that the state has and what it's going to mean for our overall state budget. I'm hopeful that we will see Congress take additional action to give states more support. Every state in the nation is confronting an economic crisis like we are. Every state in the nation, Democratic and Republican governors, have come together to try to get Congress to pass this fourth supplemental. Maybe it's not exactly how Speaker Pelosi introduced it. Maybe there's, negotiation to be had. But at the end of the day, we need to get something done because the pressure on states is real. And the biggest parts of our budgets are education, public safety, and public health. In a global pandemic, you don't want to skimp on any of those things. And that's why it's really important that we get this additional assistance from Congress so that we can avoid just devastating cuts in these areas. And that's what I'm hopeful of. We know that we have to have a balanced budget at the end of the day, and we're going to have to make a lot of tough decisions going forward. If Congress would take some action and help out the states, it would make it a little bit easier for us to navigate and to protect the education of our kids and the health care of our people.
Question from Tammy. When will you allow hospitals to resume normal surgeries? She says, my husband needs a major surgery and can't until you lift the restrictions.
So I think that's one of the, perpetuating misunderstandings about what the orders were. Early on, we had to take action to prevent anything that was really not life-threatening because we didn't have enough of those masks, those N95 masks that we've all come to know how important are in this moment. We didn't have enough gloves. We didn't have enough gowns. We didn't have, we were missing all of these supplies because we had such an influx of COVID patients. On top of that, we didn't want people in the hospital unless they absolutely had to be because there were so many COVID patients in the hospital, and we didn't want people to be exposed unnecessarily. For those two reasons, we took a really aggressive approach early on. Since then, we've been able to build up our PPE. Since then, we've seen our numbers continue to decrease. And so we have authorized hospitals to take on additional surgeries and procedures that in the early days were not wise to do. And so I would encourage anyone who falls into that category to talk to their doctor and to get scheduled.
Governor, you and I have talked a lot about leadership as a woman in Lansing, and one thing I wanted to ask before I let you go is that some opposed to your stay-at-home orders use gender-specific stereotypes to describe your actions, describing you as an overbearing mother or a school marm in some instances. Do you think that sexism has played a role in the backlash to your executive actions?
You know what? I'm not going to speculate the motives of everyone who has cited those things, but I think when people turn to language like that, it's a natural question to ask, Emily. Here's the thing. When you see protests at the Capitol and they have, all sorts of, I think, incendiary things, whether it's, depictions of a noose or Nazi propaganda or Confederate flags, when you see some of the ugly threats that have been made online around these protests, I think it is, you can conclude that there is a gender facet to this. We're seeing people are understandably frustrated, but that kind of rhetoric, that kind of threatening language and threats of violence is never acceptable, whether you agree with someone or not, whether you are a man or a woman. That is unacceptable, and we all need to hold one another accountable on that front, because at the end of the day, this really is not a political moment. It's about a health crisis, a global pandemic. And the enemy is not one another. The enemy is a virus, and it doesn't discriminate against us. And that's why we've all got to be united against it.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Governor. I really appreciate you joining us today and answering some of these really important questions from our readers and our viewers. And I will let you get back to your home office. And thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.